Hi everyone. I'm on the steps of the Library of Congress. You know, ever since I saw it on Reading Rainbow, I just had to come here. And look at me, I'm in D.C., I get to see the Library of Congress. So we're going to go inside now. The rest of the video will be photographs because I don't want to disturb everybody. But, ladies and gentlemen, here's the Library of Congress with a guided tour.
Alright, I admit it. I didn't find the building right away. While this is also the Library of Congress, this was not where the tour was to start at 2:30. When I did get to the Jefferson building for the tour, I had just missed the start of the 1:30 tour, so I looked around and spent some time at the American Treasures exhibit. Unfortunately, there were no cameras allowed in that exhibit, so I do not have much to show you there, but it was a display organized by the Jeffersonian categories of imagination, reason, and memory. They had a display on the composition of Leonard Bernstein's Mass. There was also a TV showing some of the first movies. One of the first movies was only a couple seconds long and consisted of a guy tipping his hat. I managed to kill the better part of an hour on that exhibit, so now it's time for the tour. Looks like I found it. As you can see, there were plenty of seats, but I didn't want to sit down. I was too excited. To start off, we were given a little history. When the U.S. government first started, it had a small 3,000-book library consisting of all law books. That was destroyed by the British in the War of 1812 because the U.S. destroyed their parliament in Canada. Bummer. In need of some cash, Thomas Jefferson then convinced the U.S. to buy his library for around $23,000. The U.S. was hesitant at first because they thought they only needed law books, but Jefferson convinced them that the other books would come in handy too. Unfortunately, around 1860, there was a fire that destroyed nearly 2/3 of the Jefferson collection. Double bummer. Later, copyright law started and the U.S. government began getting free copies of every book that wanted a copyright. They needed a building to hold them all, and the Library of Congress was born. To help make an impressive building, the builders wanted mosaic tile. But the mosaic people didn't want to put their work in what they deemed to be a poorly lit building. A compromise was eventually reached. The mosaic would be done in cartoon style, where the pattern was drawn and then shipped across the world for the actual tiles. Throughout the Library of Congress, there are many stories told by groups of paintings. This story says that a good government should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. A good government leads to peace and prosperity, while a bad one leads to anarchy. No word on what caused the people painted to forget to wear sufficient clothing. Also depicted in the mosaic are the subjects such as law and medicine. This next series of pictures depicts the evolution of the book. At the very start, we have a guy simply communicating by using rocks to mark his territory. Here we see the oral tradition in progress. The story is passed down simply by the spoken word. This guy is working on the very beginning of the written word. And finally we see the monks writing down the oral tradition onto vellum, animal skin. We are then shown the Gutenberg Bibles. We were told absolutely no photos of the Bibles under any circumstance, so this one's taken from Wikipedia and dates back to the 15th century. The Bible, not the photo. Pretty cool. Cold, actually. The temperature and humidity are strictly controlled on the glass enclosed case for maximum preservation of one of the library's most valuable assets. Here's the compass at the library's main entrance. It points the way to the main reading room. Ironically, that entrance is closed. Here are the obligatory children. The artist wanted to make them different than the commonly seen winged children in Europe because he felt that America was different. Africa's child, for example, is holding on to the globe, while the U.S. child is not. This child's making a phone call. This is one of the seals of the bookmakers. Since there were a lot of books, there were a lot of bookmaker seals. Here we see depicted spring, summer, fall, and winter. It's all the same woman because the lead artist didn't pay the artists well enough to really afford many models. He knew that they were working on something big and thought that was payment enough. The tour guide wanted us to know that all the gold we saw was actually real gold. The silver-like stuff, on the other hand, was actually aluminum. This is because, at the time, aluminum was more expensive than gold. The Library of Congress was apparently the first building to have electric lighting. They installed gas tubes just in case, but never needed to use them. Here we see 5 of the library's custom light bulbs. There's only one thing they forgot: light switches, so these bulbs burn all the time. I'd hate to be the guy who has to change them. That's Minerva, not a warrior, but a protector of the United States. To the left is an owl, which, of course, represents wisdom. We now know that owls weren't actually that bright. To the right is Nike, the goddess of victory. Yes, that's apparently where Nike got its name. And the wings are apparently where Nike got its swoosh. Crazy. Also in this close-up is Minerva showing off all possible subjects. Up there in the attic is apparently a school that members of Congress can send 11th graders to. I wonder what else they have hiding up in the attic. Our last stop on the tour was the gallery overlooking the reading room. Interestingly, this was as close we got to a normal book all tour. There were no cameras allowed in this place either, so here's a picture from the brochure. Each of the countries depicted in the dome have given something to knowledge. Egypt, for example, gave the practice of record keeping. Finally, here's the library's rotunda. It was, and still is, made of solid gold, but the people in Congress complained, shortly after it opened, that there were too many tourists being taken from the Capitol to the Library of Congress because of the gold. So they put copper on top of it. Yuck. And that was it. Nearly everything else, except some of the exhibits, was members only. To get your card, you had to run over to the James Madison building. By the time I did that, the office was closed for the day.
Hope you liked the tour.